Yeah, welcome to another episode of Dad Can We Talk? I'm your host, Anthony Ray. And today I want to welcome to the show a husband, a father of three, an adoptive parent, a high school teacher turned homeschool teacher, follower
Yeah,
of Christ, my friend and my brother, Mike Rohan. How you doing,
what's
bro?
good, man? What's good? Happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, man. You know, I've been waiting. I thought about you the other week. I say I gotta get my boy on, man.
Well, I remember you telling me a while back when you were still in the radio station when we went and grabbed lunch at Mother's. And you're like, I
Yeah,
gotta get you on.
yeah,
I'm doing this show, and I was like, all right, let's
yeah.
go. So yeah, I've been ready. So
Yeah, man.
yeah,
So,
man.
I really like to start the podcast off. I always like to start out with this first question. But before I get to my first question, I want to say rest in peace to your pops, man.
I appreciate it,
I know
man.
I know you lost your pops a little. What was that? Maybe 2 years ago.
What's it? It's 2020 now. It'll be 4 years this November.
Wow,
Yeah, like it's crazy.
that
Like
time with my
it
fam.
still feels fresh a lot of the
Yeah.
times, and you're like, dang, it's coming up on 4 years now.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
so
I thought that was like 2 years. Wow, 4
yeah,
years.
man. That's it. Yeah, just now I was like, yeah, I think 2 years sounds right now. I was like, no, that's 2016. I was like,
Yeah.
so
Wow, man.
yeah,
Well, yeah.
man. I
Well,
appreciate it.
definitely. Rest up, pops. But the first question I like to ask, man, is what was your relationship like with your dad?
Man, I got extremely fortunate. Like, most of the boys that we all grew up with,
Yeah.
Luis and all them, like everybody called him Papa Roe because he was just like everybody's dad.
Yeah.
And so that was like I told my wife, like I enjoyed playing sports all the way into college. I enjoyed like my other kind of like hobbies, but it was something about just the way that he carried himself and the fact that he had, was taking care of his siblings. Like his dad died when he was 15 and he's one of seven. And he was kind of like the main, the second oldest, but kind of the one that raised them. And so I've always just had this deep admiration for my dad. And I think just wanting to be a dad was because I watched him do it, not perfect, but just do it well,
Yeah.
faithfully. So it was good, man. And I mean, I realize now, like there was plenty of like periods where, he was doing his best to spend time with each of us. And when you got 6 kids and, he was a mailman and he rode his bike to and from work
Yeah.
and he was creative in how he spent time with us. And so, yeah, man, I was very fortunate that my dad was the dad for a lot of my friends who don't have dads.
Yeah.
And so that he was that person, because that was like, he grew up in Little Havana in Miami, and his father, before he passed away, he was kind of like that dude in the neighborhood for all the kids in the neighborhood there. And so, yeah, man, I got really lucky that I had this model to look at. And I know that's even just with a lot of my friends growing up, they didn't have that. So I knew early on, like I was real lucky having him. So
That's real, man. Would
yeah.
you say you took anything from, like, out of all the years that you had him, man? What was one of the most important things you would say you learned from your dad?
I think the way that he treated my mom.
Yeah.
And I think that's the best gift you can give your kids is showing them how you elevate and you adorn your spouse. My mom was like almost sacred, almost to the point of like idolatry, but like not an idol.
Yeah,
Like for the Christian folk listening in, right? I'd be like, it's not idolatry, but like it was one of those like you don't mess with moms. Like you don't, like she is next to God, number one in the household.
Yeah.
So that was probably the most important thing, like the biggest gift he gave me. But he was also honest. Like I remember us having a conversation, and I don't even remember what led to this, and I was maybe in high school, and he was just like, like there's periods where sometimes I'm like, what am I doing here? And watching my parents almost look like they have this like fairy tale marriage, and they argue, but it was never like anything crazy. Like I never was like, oh, my kid, like, are my parents going to get divorced? Like that never crossed my mind. And then to hear him say he went through seasons in this marriage that everybody around who knows them, I mean, they were high school sweethearts, got married, started having kids at 22, grew up in the same neighborhood. And so you see this and it's almost like, oh, like this is this true love romance story. And then like actually getting to talk to him, and he's like, no, he's like, there's plenty of times where I'm like, what am I doing here? And it was like I don't even know like where we're gonna go from here. And I'm like, oh dang, like you guys went through that. And that was something that's been able to kind of remind me like it's all about perseverance and running that race in marriage, and yeah, like making sure that your spouse is elevated above you. So that was huge. Like I don't know how my marriage would be doing right now if I didn't have that given to me from him. So
that's real. That's real, man. I love that you say that, man. Now you make me want to go into marriage talk.
Because, yeah, I know this husband. Can we talk?
Yeah. You know, because you know that's a good, very good point, man. Great point that you make, man. Because I don't think a lot of men really look at their wives like that, especially when you have children. I think a lot of people like to think that, well, I'm gonna put my child before my wife, and I'm like, I don't know about that. And some people literally that I've told that look at me like I am like so unfit to be a father. Like, what do you mean that you love your wife over your child? I'm like, bro, that's my wife. You know, like, you know, like my thing is, you know, because people would say, well, you know, you can have another wife, but I'm like, I can have another child too.
My goal is this is for life.
Exactly. So. Like I don't plan on I don't plan on having any more children.
Yeah, me too.
For one, I'm not
good at 3
children, and I don't plan on having another wife. You know,
exactly.
I'm good with what I have. I'm good with the wife that I have and the 3 children that I have. I don't plan on adding anything else. You know, and you know, when I look at my wife, I look at my wife as if like my wife is. My wife is before my children. Because my wife literally was before my children.
Yeah. She's the one who gave you your children.
Exactly, bro. You know, she made me a father, bro. So
exactly.
You know, there definitely has to be honor there. And I think that when you understand that dynamic, it helps the relationship to really grow, because you look at your wife almost like you said, you know, and that's real, you know, like she's sacred, bro.
Yeah.
You know, my wife to me, bro, that's on a whole other level, bro. That's something else right there, bro.
Yeah, and mine's watching right now, and just so you know, like I don't always treat her like she's sacred, because I'm human real. And I fail and I got to learn. But yeah, like no, she is, and my kids know, like mom's is number one.
Straight up. Straight up. That's
real, man.
So I kind of want to go into this. What has it been like transitioning into this new teaching world? You know, as I said before, you know, you're a high school teacher at Eastside High School.
Yeah.
What has it been like, you know, going into that different, you know, going from being on campus to being like a homeschool teacher now?
I mean, for me, like it seems like it's a lot slower. It actually has been a easier transition, because like high school, I got, you know, 30 kids in a class, 5 to 6 classes a year. So that's, you know, somewhere around 150 kids. And it like they're always on my mind. And so you can tell, just like with your own biological children, right? Or like your own kids at home, right? When you have students, you can start to tell when they're going through stuff. And then you have the ones that you know, behavioral issues, whatever, and it's more of like, how do I care for you and educate you, and how do we figure out what's going on so that I can get you to focus, because I know how important, you know, this education is for you. And so it's almost been like, it's just been like, man, now I'm just, you know, focusing on, you know, for a little while, because I got my high schooler too, like she's going to go back to school next year. So I'm only homeschooling the boys. You know, and that's 7 and 2. But while she was here, it was like, man, like the 2-year-old, I make sure he's not climbing on anything or,
Yeah.
you know, he's asleep. And then the other two, it's kind of just monitoring and they're, you know, like, praise God, like they're really like great kids. And like I say that you need to do your work. Like, I don't have to be like hovering over them. I can come in and they'll call me in if I have to check on the baby. Like, hey, I need help with this. I don't understand this. And so it was, for me, it was easier. And so, like, I know a lot of people talking about quarantine, like, it was difficult. For me, it was like, man, like, we've been exercising together. For me, there was the silver lining. Like, I get this really good time with my kids.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was something like when we adopted Lucas, like me and my wife just stopped working, and we were fortunate enough that, you know, we had saved enough, and then she was working part-time. She's a nurse practitioner. And so, you know, we were fortunate enough in that time to just spend time with him. And then kind of, you know, visiting friends in Spain, where their lifestyle there is a lot more family oriented than work oriented, like in the US. We've always tried to figure out a way to maintain like a really good work-life balance so that we're spending that quality time with the kids. And then when my daughter moved in with us, I don't think we had that same kind of quality time we had with Lucas. So when Caitlin moved in, you know, it was the middle of the fall. It was in October. And so, you know, hits the ground running with school. Then I'm coaching baseball. So I'm gone. Like, this is high school sports. It's varsity level. Like, we're practicing every day, you know, 3-4 hours a day. And I don't think I got that bonding time as much with her. And so this has been like really like a huge blessing in our household, like that I get to spend this time to really get to kind of like know her on a better level and grow in our communication with each other. So yeah, man, like the transition for me was easy. So I'm worried when we, if, you know, depending on if we do this, you know, just for a couple of years with the boys and then transition them back into school, we're still, you know, praying about figuring that out. But when the little one gets to where he's got to learn how to like read and stuff like that, like I heard that like kindergarten first, that stuff scares me. Like I can handle high school all day, but like that kindergarten first grade, and I'm like, all right, am I gonna screw him? He can't read. Is he gonna be in 5th grade, like a 1st grade reading level? Because I'm a really bad kindergarten teacher. So I'm worried when I get to that point, because my 7-year-old's a sponge, and he asks so many questions. I have to like not suppress his questions. So he's just really smart. And so, yeah, I think for me, like I've talked to other parents and even teachers who are at home with their kids, and they're like, oh, I want to be back at school. And I was like, I'm lucky, you know, with my kids that it hasn't been like pulling teeth so far. So check back with me like after like official homeschooling comes in. You know, once we get like December time, I might be singing a different tune, but you know, right now we're good. And like we get to spend time in devotionals and stuff. Like there's a really good program called the Bible Project, and it's good enough where, you know, my 7 and my 14-year-old can understand what's like biblical concepts. And like some stuff that's really difficult to understand, but it's broken down in such a visual way. And I set it up like an English lesson. So we get to do these things that I know they wouldn't be able to do in school. And so that, you know, that's been really fruitful too. So, but yeah, long answer, my bad.
Oh no, that's good. That's good stuff, man. I was got to ask you something about that. So when it comes to like, when you're on the campus, like, do you ever really realize, is there ever a time when you realize the effect of fatherlessness in the school? Like, is that something that you would say that you could see in the students, or like you
a little
said,
bit, like you can tell. So this isn't a broad brushing statement. I've had kids who are from a single parent home. And the parents are hard to get a hold of, and that kid is still just in the classroom on it. And then I've had kids who have both parents involved, come to a parent-teacher conference, and that child is still having a hard time. But I would be naive to say that there isn't a positive effect for the kids who have fathers in the home. If anything, I think being a male and being older and being somebody who's an athlete, a lot of my male students and some of them were athletes, but even, I mean, I guess maybe just because I wear Jordans to work sometimes. But a lot of my male students, the ones who don't have fathers, is I've seen more often than not that I've been able to connect with them more. And the ones who I don't think I'm connecting at first, all it takes is for the first day that I have a sub. And when I get back to like, yo, where were you at? Like, why weren't you here? And like, I'm like, oh, why'd you miss me? And so I feel like that's probably something I've noticed more in the school system is there's this just like deep longing to be in relationship with older males. And so like, I think that relationship, and obviously like there's no way that I could ever replace that. And I mean, even being a white male, there's only so much that I understand what they're going through. But yeah, that's something that I've seen is noticeable. Again, I think more often than not, the parents who are involved, those students are doing well. And I usually have to worry about less, or those are the ones that you see when they start to veer off. Mom and dad or are in the office and calling a parent teacher conference or emailing me or contacting me. And like, I noticed that, his grade just went from an A to a B, what's going on? And so I think I like, that's probably like the overall majority is the ones who do have those fathers in the home. They're not getting off track for long.
Yeah.
Is probably what I would say on that. So
yeah, that's real, man. Cause I was talking with a kid. I've been mentoring this one guy, and as I've been talking with him, he's 23 right now, but I met him probably back in 2013, so it's been a good minute since I've known him. And I was just talking with him yesterday, and just really trying to understand his mindset, and how does he feel about just life in general, man. And and he was saying something interesting. He was telling me that when it comes to school, he was telling me, like, as a young Black man, especially right now, it was like, in my generation, we don't school is okay, but he was like, our thing is, it's cool to go to school and this and that, but when we go home, there's just so much pressure on us, and a lot of us are trying to help, with bills and all type of stuff. And he was like, man, honestly, I never thought about college. He was like, that wasn't a thing that I thought about. And he was like, I wish that I was able to gain a skill, acquire a skill while I was in high school, so that when I would have got out, after I got my diploma, I could have started making money, applying that skill. And I wanted to ask you, what do you think about, vocations? Do you think that there should be vocational programs back in schools?
Yeah. So in St. Pete, they had, it was called P-Tech, and it's right across the street from the high school, Gibbs High, that I worked at in St. Pete. And it was all like vocational programs, and a lot of students could start dual enrolling their junior year. But man, I love vocational programs. So like, you remember the boys that came when we did the tournament years back? A bunch of them went and got their CDLs, and they're all making twice as much money as I'm making. Wow. And they're taking care of themselves. But yeah, I think for a lot of people, they can't afford to just go sit in college and work at Finish Line 20 hours a week if they're lucky. Yeah. Right. While people are struggling at home. Like, and that's the thing. Like, I got a lot of my students where it's like their big brother and their dad, like, they're playing all these roles.
Yeah. That's real.
And they're exhausted. And I have some of them that are literally falling asleep. And it turns out like mom's working the night shift and they're staying up with a baby that's not even a year old. And like, as parents, that's exhausting. And then to come to school and want to do that and put this work in where you're not seeing any financial return when that's the thing you need the most. Like, for me, it's not like, oh, I can't understand why you wouldn't be so motivated in class. And I was like, no, I totally get where you're coming from. I try and talk to them about like, hey, you can get Bright Futures, you can get Pell Grants. And if you guys were to work into like getting a couple of AP credits, that's money in your pocket. So I try and put it for the ones who want to go to college. Like, this is actually money back in your pocket. And I was like, a lot of people come out of college with $30,000, $35,000 of debt. And I was like, and you guys can be getting grants, just for your family income on top of getting Bright Futures. And I was like, and that's money in your pocket. And I was like, and if you guys really, like, most of my students were in kind of the the mainstream classes. I teach a couple of honors courses, but I was like, if you guys, try and even get up to build your way up to some AP courses about, cause I teach freshmen, but by the time you get junior, senior year, take some AP courses. You get each of those credits. That's a couple $1,000s in your pocket if you look at it like that.
That's real.
But yeah, like a lot of them are like, like if it's between me and when I was in St. Pete, I taught seniors. So I had a lot of them that didn't make it through the year because they're like, my boss upped my hours at McDonald's, or some of them were getting jobs where it was, ground level at a bank. And they're like, I could work up to being working in the bank and making decent money in a couple of years. Why am I even going to come to class anymore?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like I think vocational training is huge. I think it's especially for the kids. They're like, man, I can get my CDL. I can get in and go to fire college instead of going to regular college and be a firefighter and have a pension, by the time I'm 20, 21, 22, whatever. And so, yeah, like I think that's more realistic for people who don't have the time or the money to be able to spend 4 or 5 years in college.
Mm-hmm. That's real, man. That's real.
Yeah.
So, I want to go back to something you talked about earlier. Mm-hmm. You talked about the adoption process, and so you adopted 2 children, right?
Yeah.
So I want you to, just talk about that whole process of how, for one, what even made you guys go that route? What made you guys decide to go that route, and what was the process like?
Yeah. So, I mean, me and my wife, before we got married, like it had already come in the conversation, just because adoption was kind of something that was not completely normal, but it was present in both of our lives. Like my wife's parents met working at an orphanage in Cuba. Right.
Yeah.
And her mom's worked with little kids and has worked with, like, in her daycare, a lot of kids through the foster care system, and has a heart for that. So I think she passed that on to my wife. But like on my dad's side, like my grandmother's adopted, and I have nieces and nephews who are adopted. And it was just one of those things where it was like, hey, like, I think that was already kind of part of our family's histories, where it was already on our minds. But then, both of us getting saved around the same time, it's also like, good religion is loving the widows and the orphans. And how am I loving, like, and what way am I able to love those people in that capacity, like to care for widows and care for orphans. And so for us, it was just like, okay, we this is something that we're going to be praying about. And then we were kind of like, should we try and like have biological kids and then adopt? Should we try and adopt first? And then God just answered that, where we dealt with infertility for almost 3 years. So about after 2 years, both me and my wife, like we just wanted to be parents. Like we've been traveling and we're enjoying being married life. And sometimes like, oh man, we should wait a little bit longer. But like overall, like it was just like we're ready, like let's do this. So we started the process, and we adopted from foster care. Because it's a little different than if you're adopting a baby from, those things can if you're adopting like a newborn, that process can cost $30,000, $40,000. It's like, wow. Yeah. And so, but we're like, there's so many kids in St. Pete or Pinellas County and Hillsborough County, because that's when we were living in St. Pete. Like those places have like the highest, like population of kids in the foster care system. So it's like, all right, well, like you have people on waiting lists, for a newborn, but there's like just they don't even have enough homes for foster kids in St. Pete. Kids they're running stories about kids sleeping in the offices.
Wow.
Until they could find somewhere to put them. And it's like, okay, there's a need here. And so, we went through the process. You had to, take these classes, do background checks, home studies. But we were still young, like at the age at the time where it's like, I don't think we could adopt a teenager, being at the time we were, 25, and my wife was 25 and I was 26. And it was like, so, we wanted to look for something younger. We told them, around 7 or younger. They told us, fat chance unless you adopt like 4 of them, 4 kids or something. So like, hey, we'll think about it. So we get through all the red tape. And the day after our home study gets done, our case manager is like, hey, we have you matched with somebody. She's like, I told you this never happens. This never happens. She said, the only reason we got matched was because the foster parents of our son, Lucas, had they had tried to match him with multiple families, and the foster parents were like, no, we don't want, like, these people are not right for him. We've had him for a year and a half. And then our case manager just happened to be making copies of our home study and heard them saying what they were looking for, and she's like, I'm literally copying this home study of the people you're describing. And so it was just like complete, like, if they had this meeting, like the original meeting got postponed a week. If they had that meeting a day before, we might never have been, matched with our son. And so, then we got to meet him. He started slowly kind of integrating into our family and leaving the foster family. And it was crazy because his first time coming to spend an extended time, first time he slept at our house was the day after my dad died.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it was definitely a time of like, I'm still trying to process like losing my pops. And then like, I got this amazing, like smart, beautiful little boy. He was 3.5 at the time. And so it was like a good distraction. And I mean, like that made it harder for me to process things. But at the same time, I was like, man, I got something so beautiful to praise God for. And like, I don't know, like God's presence and the Holy Spirit was definitely like heavy, like in my life at that time, like sustaining me through this. Yeah. And yeah, so we adopted him. We had been struggling with infertility for about 3 years at that point. And then on our anniversary, my wife got pregnant with Diego.
Wow.
And so, and it was funny because a lot of people are like, oh, you guys are going to adopt and you guys are going to get pregnant. And we're like, yeah, that doesn't look like it's going to be in the cards for us. Like the doctor said, we may never have kids. And we know plenty of people who've adopted from foster care and still never had a, biological child. And then it happened and we're like, oh, everybody's gonna be telling us we told you so. But then she got pregnant with Diego. We had him 2 weeks before Lucas's birthday. And then that summer was when we were moving back to Gainesville, and we had met Lucas's biological sister, but she was living with biological grandmother. And then biological grandmother signed over rights and she ended up in foster care. But the guardian ad litem for Lucas was also her guardian, called us and said, hey, like she's in foster care. Just want to let you guys know. And I think she was kind of like hinting at that time, like, if you guys want to. But I mean, to me and my wife, it was kind of a no brainer. Like, look, this is a biological sister. Like she's in a situation that this had nothing to do with her. It wasn't her fault. And she's just the sweetest little girl. And it was like, all right. And then she was 12 at the time. Yeah, she was 12 at the time when they called us. And so then but we had to go through the process again, because when he got taken away from his biological mother and rights were signed away, like we were able to adopt him, but because she went and lived with biological grandmother instead of going straight into the system, the whole process started over. So we had to do that. And then January 31st, whatever the last day of January, 31st or 30th.
The 31st, yeah. 31st.
Yeah, I was like, I think it's, so January 31st, everything was official. And so then, then in 2 years, we went from no kids to 3 kids. So it happened real fast. But I mean, it's been good, man. It's hard, just like every parent, deals with struggling with parenting. It's beautiful. I mean, it's good, man.
That's
so
real.
Yeah, but
that's real. Have you through this process, have you learned anything about God in this whole process? Like, when I look at fatherhood, I always tell people, I never really understood. Like, I understood forgiveness and I understood patience to a certain degree. But now that I have children, it's like, I feel like I really understand how God feels about, when he talks about, unconditional love and, forgiveness and, being patient and long suffering. It's like, I feel like if you don't really have children, I think God gives parents like this special understanding of like patience, bro. It's like, bro, you got to literally, that's something that I just feel like if you don't have children, you will never truly understand it, because it's like, I don't know, bro. It's like a dynamic that that I really didn't fully comprehend, like unconditional love and patience and all of that, until I had children. And so now that you've become a father, and not just a father, but that God talks about, adopting us into his family. And like I'm sure God, I wonder if God has given you any revelation on that, on that aspect of parenting, and what else has God taught you about fatherhood through this experience?
Yeah, man. Well, you know who actually presented that even that idea to me for the first like real time? That was you. I think it was when y'all were having Azriel, or after you had it, and you came to the turkey bowl on Thanksgiving.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, yo, how is it being a dad? And I was like, oh man, we're saved now. We're having these conversations. I'm excited to hopefully be a father in the near future. And what you're saying now, you're like, man, I like see God's like love for me and all in like just a greater capacity. And I was like, oh man, I'm so excited. And so that's great. That's something that's always stuck with me was you saying that to me. And it was just a quick, like we were just at the turkey bowl. I don't know if it was before or after the game was over, and I was like, how's being a dad? And you said that to me. And it's true, man. I see God and understand his patience and his grace for me when I watch my kids, learning and growing and failing and in their own like small worlds, it's all about them. And it's like, man, like that's definitely me in my own small world and compared to God's view of everything. But like I've also seen God's grace in the way that like my kids are so quick to forgive me, especially when they're real little.
Wow.
And like I remember I yelled at Lucas one time and I was so hard on him, and he was only like 4 at the time. And I just remember being like my wife was out of town for a work training and it was just me and him. Like I yelled at him and it really wasn't anything I shouldn't have got upset with. I just remember being so upset during church service and like almost in tears. And like I luckily like some of my older spiritual brothers who had discipled me were like, yo, like apologize to your kids. It's the best way to show them, who you are and that you're, a sinner, that you need grace and forgiveness. And so like, I just was like, like I need to apologize to him. So we go out to the car and I'm buckling him in and I just go, look, I just want to tell you, I'm sorry for yelling at you earlier. Like you didn't deserve that. And just without hesitation, he goes, it's okay, daddy. And I was like, I was about to cry. Yeah. Like he just immediately like, it's okay, daddy. And I'm like, oh my God, I need to be more like you in the way that's like real. I like the amount of grace that I need to have. And so, that's real. It's dope to see their unconditional love for me. And I see God through that. And then also getting to see God's perspective of how much he loved me from how much I love them. So yeah, that's definitely been something that constantly like, try to keep in the back of my mind and is present there. It's like, all right, if my kids are frustrating me with, again, I asked them to do this and, they went left when I asked them to go right. And it's like, I'm tired. And it's like, all right, God's patient and so, yeah. And it's good because when I don't do that, I'm like, dang, like I know I definitely didn't deal with me the way God's dealing, or didn't deal with them the way that God's dealing with me. So
that's real. Yeah, that's real, man. And it's so funny that you say that because that's something that I definitely deal with. I'll be, bro, at the smallest thing. And a lot of times I'm not even mad at my children. It's just that I've had a long day. Yeah. And I come home, bro, and it's like the smallest thing, I will like go off, bro. And I'm talking about just literally blow up, bro. And then right after I'm done, I'm like, dang, I'm tripping. I should have never even did that, and then I have to go back and apologize. And like you said, they're just like, okay, it's okay then, whatever. And they just go on about their life and don't even mention it, bro. And it's like, it never happened. Yeah. But for some,
so enjoy it now. When they start to get older, though, yeah, they might not be as quick. So it's enjoy when they're little, because then they start getting into the middle of high school age. They'll be like, and you're like, oh, don't get chill.
That's real, man. That's real. But that's some good stuff, bro. I want to go here. How has parenthood affected your marriage, good or bad?
I think the good is it's really made us zero in on our time together, and I think it makes that much more enjoyable. Like we did our first weekend away from my wife's 30th birthday last year, and like I don't know, and it was just we went to Savannah. We didn't want to go that far away, and man, I can't remember the last time I was just like so excited hopping in the car, and she's like, "Let's stop at Cracker Barrel and get breakfast," because we left really early in the morning. I was like, "Oh yeah, we go to breakfast by ourselves," and like. I was like, "Oh, we're going to a hotel." Like I felt like a little kid, like wanting to like jump on the bed, like, what do you want to do? We can do anything that we don't have to, make sure that, am I going to be cutting up nuggets? Am I going to be doing this? So it's made me enjoy the little times. Like if we're like, hey, let's go at like a little, even a little date night, like going up to the restaurant around the corner and just like, hey, let's get a drink and some appetizer or something for an hour is so much sweeter. Than when it was just us two and we were, going out to eat multiple times a week or whatever. And just like, like I think that Savannah trip in a lot of ways was more enjoyable than some of the ones who were like, oh, to like Nicaragua or whatever. And it's like, yeah, man, like that was dope. But there was something like, me and my wife time to just enjoy each other. So that's good. The hard part is learning how to create that time, learning how to communicate in a way that's with each other when we disagree, that's not gonna cause unnecessary anxiety in our kids. And I think that's one that we're still learning, because me and my wife are really honest with each other, and that's something that I've always appreciated about her. And like we've never swept things under the rug. Like we've made sure like when there's something we don't like or disagree on, like that we take time to figure out. And now it's learning like, all right, do we need to step away and figure it out an hour later in the bedroom? Do we need to learn how to converse in a way that my 7-year-old's not like, why are you guys so angry? And that part's hard because both of us are very like strong-willed and we can be intense. And so it's learning how to communicate better, which is a good thing in the long term. But yeah, so learning how to communicate better in a way that doesn't harm our kids emotionally. Learning how to create time for each other and being intentional. And that was something I have like having some older Christian men who are in successful marriages saying like, you need to be intentional, like with your wife, and you need to really be focusing on perseverance and intentionality. And I'm like, all right, like, yeah, I need to be intentional with my wife. So like having an alarm on my phone, like that was one that just went off like 20 minutes ago, and I already pre-approved with her, like, hey, it's gonna cut into our quiet time. But like having an alarm that's like, hey, we try and not have the kids watch TV throughout the day, even during the quarantine, or very minimal, so that I can like, hey, you guys haven't seen TV all day, so when me and mom have our quiet time, y'all are zeroed in on TV and can leave us alone. So it's learning. It's learning how to continually love each other and meet each other's needs, because life keeps evolving. And so, still learning a lot of that. But yeah, everything happens so quickly. So it's, going from no kids to a 4-year-old, and a 4-year-old and a newborn, or a 5-year-old and a newborn, and then a teenager. And like, all right, now we went from learning how to wait till somebody goes to sleep at 7 o'clock to we're learning how to like, hey, this might be more like 9:30, 10 o'clock, or this might be like a lot of conversations, a 14-year-old can zero in on and know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's real.
So yeah, it's this constant evolution of learning each other. So
that's real, man. And like a lot of stuff you said right there, man, things that I'm still learning, bro.
Yeah, me too. Trust me.
Still learning it, bro. And, I've been a parent for 7 years, and it's still, it's a lot of times just really hard, honestly, bro, it's hard. I think maybe this year I've really started getting better, bro. Like,
yeah.
And that's just me being 100% honest. I think this year I finally have just started getting, and maybe not even, maybe the last 3 months, I would say, I've really just started getting better with learning, that communication, bro. So that communication is so important. And Um, like literally, it's a hard thing, bro. You know, I can be 100% honest and just say, you know, it's a hard thing, bro. And especially when you're working, you know, you're working full time. For me, at times I feel like I have a lot on my plate. You know, I'm in school full time, I work full time, got 3 children, I got a wife, you know, I got ministry, and then, you know, just juggling family and friends and everything. It's crazy, bro. You know?
Yeah, and then figuring out how to still keep her number one.
Exactly.
Through all that, because the days are short, man.
Seriously, bro. You know, it's very hard, but I will say that it's rewarding also, because I feel like it's a challenge, but it's a necessary challenge. You know, you don't grow without challenge. You don't grow without adversity. So come with all of the adversity that you face in marriage and all of the challenges and the struggles, man, marriage will make you grow really fast, bro. You know, and then when you add kids on top of that, bro, it's like, if
it's
you're
a new level,
man, it's crazy.
Yeah, and that's where, like, I feel like we started to get discouraged. Like, hey, you know, felt like we were starting to get a good stride in our marriage. We were in a good place, and then, you know, with work, and then, you know, our family continuing to grow, and it's almost like felt like we hit the reset button. And then you start to kind of get in your own head, like, all right, you know, we've been married 6 years. Why do I feel like we didn't make that much progress? And it's like, well, you know, the first 3 years we made good progress, and then we got these additional things, you know, with kids and life and moving, and now COVID and quarantine and all these other things going on, and going back to working full-time jobs. And then it's like, yeah, you feel like you're taking a step back, but it's because now we got more on the plate. We're having to learn how, almost like you're like, I'm having to learn how to navigate this new terrain. And yeah, that's something where it's like, you know, I can't sit here and be like, hey, I mastered baseball, so automatically I should be able to know, like, I should be mastering basketball too. It's like, no, like, I was in a good place as a couple without kids, but now we need to master being a couple with kids, and not being discouraged. Because I feel like that can be a big enemy, where you're like, man, I thought we were going to be at this place at this time, and we're not here. And are we going to get there? And I think that's where it helps if you have healthy older couples around that are telling you, like, yo, 10 years in, we were still having these ebbs and flows in our marriage, and it's okay. And you're like, all right, that's encouraging, because I know you guys are kind of on that back end of it, seeing people who've been married 30, 40 years, listening to couples talk about being faithfully married 30, 40 years, and being like, look, we're enjoying the fruits of our labor because we put that work in. And that's also been something where I feel like we've from the beginning, but even more within like the last couple of years, it's been like, look, like, we're willing to put that really heavy hard work in for that first 5-10 years, if that means that the next 20, 30 are going to be really, you know, prosperous, as far as from like a relationship standpoint.
That's real.
And so it's just like, that's just like anything else. Like, you got to put that heavy hard work in at the front end, and it's going to be hard and it's going to be painful, but that's so that you can enjoy, you know, being in that good shape from a marital standpoint for the long distance. So it's a lot easier said than done, though. Like, I a lot of times I'm like, I get it up here, but I'm still working on getting it emotionally and getting it and applying it. So
that's real, man. Hey, man, we're still growing, bro. You know, that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah, we're not that old yet. We're not that old yet. We're still kind of young.
Yeah, man. So, talking about age, if you could talk to the 18-year-old Mike Rohan, what would you say to him? What would you speak into his life? What advice would you give him?
Being smarter with my money, and not chasing after a whole bunch of girls. I mean, obviously, you knew me back then. I knew you. Neither of us knew the Lord.
That's real.
So our views of money, our views of the opposite sex, they're just not helpful. It was not good. I think I probably could have been smart enough with my money, living with, you know, at one point living off 55th with like 6 other dudes, and our rent was $100 a month. I was like, I probably could have stacked away plenty of money back then. And I was like, honestly, the money I would have saved by not going out and buying unnecessary stuff and eating out more than I should have and whatever, like, I probably could have bought a down payment on a house by the time I graduated.
That's
And so
real.
like some of the financial stuff, I wish I had been smarter with. And then, yeah, just like the way that I viewed women, there's none of it that helped me be a good husband. And it's like none of that stuff in the past like mattered or helped me in my marriage, but it definitely like hindered my
Yeah.
marriage. And so, yeah, I think those are the things where it's like, look, like if I had a better understanding of women as human beings and not objects to conquer. And that was something like getting saved and having to really like peel back the layers of how I viewed women. And it was more just a need to conquer for self-esteem purposes, for control purposes, like so many different things that, you know, getting in a healthy place and being lucky enough that when I was in Pinellas, like they offered free sessions for teachers with therapists. So like finally getting over the taboo of going to therapy and being like, I need to be able to, you know, like kind of like talk through like how I'm hardwired now because of my past. I mean, not even just with women, just with everything. But learning how to kind of sit back and say, man, like I can still at times view my wife more as an object than instead of like this person that I'm supposed to be like joined together, you know, for eternity. And like, this is supposed to be the one that my heart knows, but instead it's more like, I'm just viewing you as an object in an unhealthy sense. And so, but I like a lot of that was how I was hardwired to view women overall. And so I think being able to like, hey man, like you don't know the amount of pain you're going to cause to other people. You don't know about how much harder, if your goal is to be a good dad and a good husband one day. And back then I was like, you know what, when I'm ready, like I want to be a good dad like my dad. I want to be a good husband like my dad was, but I didn't know what it took to get there. And if I think if I had fully understood how much that was going to negatively affect me, like that would have been one of the big things I would have, you know, told myself.
It's real.
Yeah. So, and obviously, like I would have shared the gospel with myself because I feel like at the time I heard people talking about church, but I never heard the gospel in full. I never really got to sit down with somebody, you know, until years later when I sat down with my boy Emilio when we used to go surfing and stuff, and he just sat there and answered questions and shared the gospel with me. And I mean, you know, it was God's time and God was going to save me when he saved me. But it was like, man, like, I don't think I ever had somebody share the gospel with me like that. And so I would have at least tried if I was talking myself then. So
Straight up, man. That's good stuff, bro. And well, I'll get to my last question. If there's anything that you could say to a younger father right now, what would you, if there's a young father listening right now, just one thing you would say to him, you know, just one thing.
Man, your kids will learn 1,000 times more about what they see you do than what you tell them. Because man, my negative tendencies and character flaws, I feel like I even see with my 2-year-old when we started that compass, and with my 7-year-old, and you know, by the grace of God, like there still seem to be, you know, doing pretty well. The 2-year-old, who knows, man, he's crazy, but like my 7-year-old is just an amazing human being, and the same with my 14-year-old. Like working in the public school system, like I tell my wife, I was like, I know our kids can be annoying or they can have an attitude here and there. And yeah, we need to still, you know, communicate to them that that's not okay, you know, and this is, you know, the way that you should treat people. But like, man, like we got lucky, like we got some good kids. But like your kids are watching what you do and that is going to be a part of who they are. And that's going to be a part of their future relationships. And me and my wife walking through marriage and seeing how, like, my parents had a great marriage, but it wasn't perfect, and seeing some of, you know, negative character flaws that I, you know, adopted by growing up, you know, in my context, and the same with her, and seeing like, and having these moments with each other, like, I don't want to be like this anymore. And I know it's not like, hey, I can just blame my family, you know, that environment for why I am the way I am. But like, we'd be lying if we said that didn't influence how I am today. And so it's like, all right, so I have to now try and kind of like dress myself down and figure out what that is. And then for me, and I think for most people, it's a lot easier to be like, I know what my flaws are, but then it's actively changing my actions so that I'm no longer reflecting those flaws. And so it's like, I know that I got a temper. I know that I can snap. I know that, and like the same with like my wife, like she knows, like I don't need to tell her like the areas that she struggles. She knows. Because I think most people know better than anybody else. The areas that, they struggle with, but it's just how, like, am I actually changing my outward behavior, or is it just like, is it all just talk? And so it's trying to be constantly conscious of what are my kids seeing.
That's real.
So
good stuff, man. That's good stuff. Well,
yeah, man.
I definitely enjoyed this, man. I appreciate you for coming on, man, because like I always say, I learned something from these sit downs. I never started Dad Can We Talk because I thought I was some perfect dad and I knew it all. Like, I want to learn from other dads, and everyone that I bring on, no matter their background, no matter what they do for a living, whatever, everyone has taught me something, something that I can take. And, there was a lot of things that I'll be able to take away from this. And hopefully, by the grace of God, I'll be able to apply those things to my life and become a better dad and be a better husband, man, because really that's what it's about, constantly growing. You always got to be growing. So, like I say, I appreciate you, bro.
Yeah, man. Nah, like, thank you for having me on. Thank you for doing this because, I enjoy, like, I caught Mike Rohan, who I actually went to elementary school with.
Yeah.
And then when you have Vernell on, and yeah, man, it's just, I think it's good for dads to hear other dads, talking about the experience and realizing a lot of us have, similar experiences and related experiences. Because it always helps to know you're not the only one. So,
it's real, man.
Nah, man, like, keep it up, man. I appreciate what you're doing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Man, you got to send me your shirt size so I can send you a shirt, man.
Yeah, man. You like that shirt? You like that?
Oh, yeah. That shirt will fire, bro.
Yeah, I saw somebody posted it, and I was like, oh, my God, I'm going to get it. So
yeah, man, I got to send you one of the Dad Can We Talk shirts, man. So
oh yeah, man. Oh, the dad bod gets a little husky, so just in case I might need that XL or double XL.
Yeah,
but
cool, man. Yeah, so I'll try to make sure I'll check my inventory, see what I got, and I gotta definitely get you a shirt, my boy.
Yeah, man. I'll take a pic with it and send you over. Represent.
Yeah. But yeah, man. Hey, yeah, man. We got to get together soon, man. We just sit down, man. I miss being with my brothers, man. Sitting down.
I know this quarantine stuff is.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll throw some masks on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sit outside.
Sure, man. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, yeah, man. I'll holler at you, man. Tell your wife I said hello.
Yeah, right, man. Say hi to Chanel too, man, and to give them babies. Tell everybody else what's up.
All right,
man.
All right, bro.
All right, I'll talk to you later.